I'm William Smith, and I'm a professional services engineer with Jamf Software. Let's talk again about administering Office 2016 for Mac. It was a time of imminent release. I was here with you at Penn State Mac Admins Conference last year on July 8th, presenting a lot of what I'd learned about administering Office 2016 for Mac. The day after my presentation, though, Microsoft dropped it to customers, and suddenly we had a lot more to learn. First, this release was only for Office 365 customers. There was no volume license, and it was up in the air if Microsoft would ever release a non-Office 365 perpetual license. The first time our users launched Office 2016, any application, they reported messages about the Microsoft AU daemon. As administrators, we had a pretty good idea this was Microsoft AutoUpdate, but this was a new dialog that we'd never seen in Office 2011. And when we installed it, the Office 2016 package, we never saw this prompt. Why were our users seeing it? Should we tell them to open it? Should we tell them to cancel it? Clicking the Show Application button certainly revealed it was part of AutoUpdate, but why didn't it just run silently like it had in the past? Next, Office 365 customers saw bizarre cryptic messages about Office applications wanting to access their keychain. Should we allow it? Should we deny it? Users had a difficult time knowing how to respond to these messages, and frankly, so did administrators too. What was this? Finally, Microsoft slipped in some What's New screens just before shipping. These hadn't been in the Office preview. We learned last year that the Office 2016 preferences were stored in a Microsoft registration DB file, a SQL-like file. Could we edit that file? Could we manage it? Could we make these screens go away?
No.
My assistant fails. On August 5th, just a few weeks after releasing to Office 365 customers, Microsoft answered the request for the volume license installer. The importance of the volume license is to allow us to deploy Office en masse without requiring any kind of intervention or activation. But there was a problem. It still required activation. Or rather, it wasn't installing the volume license. We learned later that if we double-clicked the package and we manually installed Office, everything worked just fine. However, any method using the command line installer tool failed. That included Apple Remote Desktop, Casper, Deploy Studio, and Monkey. The volume license edition of Office 2016 was effectively non-deployable. These were just a few of the issues that Mac admins had with the new version of Office. So the community began dissecting the Office 2016 installer package, and we quickly knew why we were seeing several of these problems. Tim Sutton wrote a fantastic post detailing some of the issues he had found. And knowing Mac admins would have to resort to unsupported workarounds, he urged everyone reading his post to reach out to his or her Microsoft TAM and to tweet and to email anyone who would listen and could affect change. In early November 2015, I got a chance to do just that. Nearly every year I get an opportunity to go visit with the Office for Mac developers at Microsoft, and last year I went on a mission to find someone who would listen to us and could help. My contacts put me in touch with Paul Bowden. I emailed him and I asked if I could have some of his time to review a list of issues that I'd seen in the Mac admin community. He replied back to me and said, "Sure, I can help." Prior to our visit, I forwarded him this email that I'd put together with my list of concerns and that I wanted him to see. Then I met with Paul during the last hour of my last day of my visit to the Microsoft campus. I started talking with him and I said, "I'm not sure whether you've had a chance to look at the list that I sent you," and he kind of quietly cut me off and he responded, "I've read it, and the blog post too. I'm responsible for the installer and we'll get things fixed." Paul was currently working on He was currently working on the volume license installer issue, and he already had the list of things that he'd like to tackle. So, wow, mission accomplished in 2 minutes. Now what? So we talked about a lot of things while I was there. He asked me for some opinions. I gave him some feedback. He showed me his whiteboard and told me how he's working on these new channels for AutoUpdate called Dog Food and Insider and Production. And before long, I'd be able to subscribe to some super secret channels to get these updates for testing before they actually went to production. Paul told me about their plans for faster updates and their methods for testing these new releases. I asked why the volume license downloaded as a PKG in a DMG inside an ISO. I'll let him explain that one later. And then during our visit, I asked him a lot of those niggling why and how questions. At the end of our conversation, I learned a lot about the new things that were getting ready to come for Office for Mac. And as I was walking out of his office to leave, I asked Paul if he'd ever heard of Slack. I love Slack. He said yes, and then I asked him to call up the sign-up page and check it out tomorrow. So specifically, I asked Paul to join the Microsoft Office channel in Slack and lurk, just to see what people are saying, and I said, you'll get an idea of the insight into our issues. He said he would. So that evening, I posted in the Microsoft Office channel that I'd met the person and he said he'd help. And I said, kind of toward the end, great guy, open, honest, listening. That's the impression that I got from Paul right away. The next day, Paul introduced himself. I was not expecting that. Over the next couple of hours, he received numerous welcomes and emoji beers. He stepped into the lion's den, although, as Eric Holton said, most of us are toothless, declawed, and full of mange.
And I wanted to belong to that.
So now, I'd like to introduce Paul Bowden. I'm going to let him take the story over from here.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I was just looking at those photographs of my whiteboard. It's like, man, I wish I could go back in time and put a lot more equations and math on there to make me look even smarter. It's a pleasure being here. It's kind of a real honor. What's transpired over the past, well, I guess 7 months is nothing kind of short, but a lot of learning on my side, a lot of information being passed over to you guys. It's really interesting. A year ago, I was sat in my office developing a lot of the post-install scripts, packaging up each of our applications, thinking, this will work. This will do just fine. And then I met with Bill, and it's like, perhaps the stuff that I developed didn't really work that well. And then, in fact, you didn't really show all of the comments in the Slack channel, but Hunty, or Callum, in Australia, I think, responded to your post saying, oh, so you met the intern then that packaged up all of Office. That got me going. I was thinking at that point, well, I'm angry. No, I'm not angry, because really this is all my fault. So this is a time for me to, come in and take my blows and try and fix all this. So I kind of come here not as any type of celebrity, but as a regular guy that screwed things up to begin with, and kind of here to come and fix things up. All right. You want to go on?
Alrighty. All right, so last year I began my presentation with a brief history of Office for Mac, and as we reached the end, the Office 2016 preview for Mac was our only guide for what to expect. Let's continue this timeline and see what's happened since then. Paul joined the Mac admins team Slack in November, and since then, 5 more Microsoft developers have joined too. Jonathan Leung is here in the audience, I hope. There he is. Would you stand up? He works on OneDrive. We've got 2 folks here. They represent different Office and non-Office applications such as Outlook, OneDrive, Skype for Business. When Paul introduced himself, he asked for our top 3 wishes regarding the issues that we had for Office. And then by mid-December, just a month later, he had addressed 10 issues that would appear in the December and the January releases that were coming up. His changes included support for command line installation. He fixed our installer problems. A new volume license serializer tool, which we'll discuss later. He suppressed those dialogues that we started seeing and made manageable P-lists for a lot of these things so that we can control things like saving to online storage locations versus saving locally. So once our most pressing concerns were addressed, Paul and Eric Schwiebert, he goes by Schwieb, started telling us their plans for Office. Yes, they plan to release it in the Mac App Store. When? That's to be determined. We'll let Paul talk about that later. But the apps are ready now. Just think how easy it's going to be to deploy updates and Office apps for your Mac using device-assigned VPP licenses from your caching servers. That's what we've hopefully got to look forward to. Schwieb heard our problems with the Thomson Reuters EndNote plugin, and he reached out to developers to get their help and get their software ready for Word's new sandboxing requirements. And we learned 64-bit apps are definitely in the future, the very near future. With that, let's look at what we've learned about administering Office and what the future holds. We'll take a look at not only how quickly Microsoft is releasing updates, but also the different types of updates they offer now. And we'll learn about the variety of deployment methods and their new tools for managing deployments and updates. Then we'll talk about what we know about the future of Office. With Office 2011 and earlier, we were used to receiving updates about 1 to every 4 months. This release was sporadic and kind of unpredictable at best. Sometimes we might see a new feature or two. Usually we'd see an update follow the next month only if Microsoft needed to patch a security vulnerability or fix a bug. Today, we're seeing a regular release of updates every month for Office 2011. However, since the release of Office 2016, these releases have only included patches for security and significant bug fixes. Generally, the updates release about every second Tuesday of the month, which Microsoft and the rest of us kind of know as Patch Tuesday. The same holds true for Office 2016. We're seeing a regular release of updates every month, and they include patches for security and significant bug fixes. However, they're frequently including new features too now. Not for every app, but usually a handful between all the apps. Here's how the release cycle works today. Throughout the month, the developers at Microsoft work on a sprint. This is a period in which they're doing specific work and it has to be completed and made ready for review. On the last Sunday of each month, which is called Fork Day, F-O-R-K, the Office team freezes work on their main branch of code and they copy those changes to their release branch. Around the following Wednesday, which is mathematically fork plus 3, the candidate build for the release goes to the internal channel of Microsoft AutoUpdate. This is when we get to see it. The only way to get this build is to manually edit your com.microsoft AutoUpdate plist file and set your name to internal. This is not something you can choose. You actually have to go edit the plist to get to this particular build. This is a period of time where the build goes through tests and checks for any new kind of issues, and they're checking that the result of the code is to make sure that the new code works as expected. Microsoft has about a week to fix, change, or remove code before releasing to Insider Slow. We're about 2 weeks out before final release at this point. Then the code moves to Insider Slow, which is fork plus 8 days. So last Sunday plus 8 days. This is a channel in the Microsoft AutoUpdate tool where you or any customer can choose to receive the candidate code about a week before Microsoft releases it to production to all of their customers. The code at this point should be fairly stable. And this may be a channel that you as administrators might want to allow some of your power users to access. Be careful though of what you put into production. During this week, this last week before production, which is called Recall Week, Microsoft's looking for showstoppers. If they find any major issues, they have this time to recall the update and go fix things. To subscribe to Insider Slow, launch the Microsoft AutoUpdate application by choosing Check for Updates from any help menu in any Office application. There's no cost and it's available to everyone. Then choose the Insider Slow and check for updates. You should immediately see new downloads available at that moment. Finally, if they've found no showstoppers during recall week and the code seems solid from testing, they'll release, which is typically fork plus 16 days later. That's around the first or the second Tuesday of the month. So not quite Patch Tuesday, but around that. This release date is approximate and it's subject to change without notice, just because they might find something and they have to postpone a release. So for a list of what's new each month, search for this page by its title. It's the easiest way you're going to find it. You'll find it usually after like the second or third hit on Google. It's the first on Bing. This is the most, I had to put a plug in there.
Shocker.
It's the most comprehensive list so far of changes on one page that you're going to find, but it doesn't list everything though. For example, Office 2016 quietly added check and tie languages to 1523. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Nope.
Nope, all right. So notice that AutoUpdate has an Insider Fast channel too. While it sounds similar to Insider Slow, it has a very, very different purpose. This channel is not for production. In fact, if you opt in to the Insider Fast channel, you'll have to accept additional licensing terms and agreements, and you understand you have no warranty and you have no support for this channel for whatever you get through here. So instead, this channel points back to the main branch of code. It is not the release channel. It'll include new bug fixes. It may introduce new features, just like the Insider Slow channel or the production channel. However, this updates about every Wednesday, which means you'll be downloading new code each week. Now, that code is a work in progress. It may be unstable. Those new features you see here may not even get released for a few months out because they're not finished. They're not tested yet. This channel is ideal for anyone who wants to see what's coming and has the ability or the patience to deal with crashes and unexpected behavior. And you've got some new information on this?
Yeah, so we've been working over the past, I guess, month or so in terms of getting stable releases out every week through the Insider Fast channel. We've actually had a parallel hidden channel going on in the background that we've been working on that we're going to start transitioning to Insider Fast in about a month from now, but we are moving to nightly builds. So not only are we producing builds nightly, but we will be releasing nightly builds as well publicly. And so what you'll see by subscribing to Insider Fast is that you'll get updates every day. Now, that's kind of both awesome and scary at the same time. Mainly scary, actually. But, yeah. You'll get to see what the developers worked on the previous day. You know, what happens is that, you know, we work through the day, we have 200 developers working on the Office for Mac product, we submit our change lists, and then midnight, every night, the build kicks off and comes out. It takes about 5 hours to compile and code sign all up, and you will get that build that day with the kind of the build stamp on it. So it's a good forcing function for us to keep the build stable, to keep quality up so that you can properly evaluate all the features that we put in there. What's kind of interesting as well is you're probably thinking, wow, that's kind of a lot to suck in, like every day, and that Microsoft AutoUpdate is kind of like a little noisy, isn't he? Like, he's going to be tweeting all the time saying, hey, update available, update available. Well, we've kind of thought about that as well. So along with this, we'll be bringing out MAU version 4, and MAU 4 will include completely silent update capabilities, where it will both detect, download, and update you in the background. And this will not only work for Insider Fast, but it will also work for any channel that you're on. So, piece of good news.
Very cool. All right, now let's look at our deployment options. This has caused some confusion for some folks, but it's really, really pretty simple. How you make your initial deployment of Office 2016 really depends on your licensing. And there's only 3 types of licensing. We have Office 365, which requires a user to sign into an Office 365 account to use the product. Administrators can deploy the software, but they cannot deploy this license. It requires monthly access to Microsoft's activation servers to continue running. A volume license is more expensive, but you're paying for the ability to distribute the software to multiple Macs en masse without having to activate. It's ready to run once it's installed. More importantly, we as Mac administrators have been following kind of a bad practice about deploying the licensing components of this product, and we need to stop. Paul's given us a tool called the VL Serializer, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Finally, a perpetual license allows the customer to purchase Office once and use it as long as he or she is running an operating system and hardware that supports it. It never expires. It's also less expensive than a volume license, but each license has its own unique serial number. So that also makes it effectively non-deployable. For the sake of deploying Office for 365 users, you simply need to download the installer from any of your Office 365 accounts and deploy the package. Just push it out. The Office 365 installer is also called SKU-less. All that means technically is that it has no licensing associated with it whatsoever. It's a generic installer, and it'll work with any type of licensing, Office 365, Volume, or Perpetual. You can deploy the SKU-less package first, and then whatever licensing you like after that. We'll see how this can work for you in just a moment. For automated deployments, a tool capable of installing packages using Apple's command line installer tool, such as Apple Remote Desktop, Casper, Deploy Studio, Monkey, they can install the SKU-less package during imaging or after the computer is imaged and booted to its own drive. This is the SKU-less version. Volume license customers should download the latest installer from their portal on the Volume License Service Center. Look for the ISO for Office for Mac. Inside that, you're going to find a DMG, and inside that, you'll find the Volume License Installer package. It's a turducken of packages here. I'm going to ask Paul to explain that.
It's not quite that bad.
It's a turducken.
No, it's so. Set me up here, didn't he? It's like, he said, come along, it's going to be awesome, it's going to be great, people are going to love you. And he's like, huh. So in the Volume License Service Center, you have to have a VL logon, so it's kind of not public facing. But there are a bunch of ISOs in there, and the ISOs are created by a internal tool that we have that construct the ISO in a certain way. Once you expand the ISO, you mount it up, there are 2 packages in there. The first is the 1.5 gigabyte Office suite install, and then the second is the Volume License Serializer, and that's about 3.5 megs, something like that. So we don't have DMGs in there anymore, so it's just 2 PKGs within inside the ISO. Our Volume License Service Center, they're kind of moving along slowly. And so the updates aren't quite as frequent as what we'd like there, and they still talk about exes and coms and bat files, and kind of still trying to encourage them to take the PKGs and have them native inside their store. But that's the reason why we have an ISO. An ISO, we just kind of produce it and we hand off to the Volume License Service and Center team, and then they put it up there. But the whole reason for coming out with the Volume License Serializer is that inside engineering, we're capable of pushing out daily builds, and we're capable of putting releases up onto the Office CDN every month. And so what we wanted Volume License customers to do is have this, essentially the secret sauce, and to be able to download the SKU List installer from the public CDN, and you install that, and then you apply the secret source, the volume license serializer, and boom, hey presto, you have a full volume license. So, don't think that you always have to go back to the volume license service incentive for your updates and for new installs. Once you have the serializer in your hands, then you really never have to go back to the service center. You can control your own destiny at that point.
All right, so we correct.
Hey, I get an opportunity to throw this.
Right. Yay, go for it.
This is my lifelong dream.
All right, so maybe you're going to cover this, so I apologize. But
Yep, moving on.
The licensor, does that run on the package or is that run on the client?
It's actually run on the client.
Okay.
What happens is inside the volume serializer, it runs an app called Microsoft Office Setup Assistant, or MOSA. And all that does is it inspects the hardware. It actually scrapes the serial number off, it hashes it, and it creates a plist file called com.microsoft.office.licensingv2 in library preferences. And so it's a plist which is specific to the hardware of that machine, actually the serial number of the boot drive, and it stamps that on the machine. So it hasn't modified the packages, it hasn't modified anything. All it's done is it's created that single plist.
Does the install order matter?
The install order used to matter. Man, I should give you $20 because this is awesome.
Here, you can have this.
Yeah, go throw it back. So VL Serializer 1.0, the install order did matter, and then everybody complained about it because you couldn't pre-deploy the serializer. So in the 2.0 version, I packaged in the license and helper components, which are like privileged helpers. And so you can take a fresh image, you can then just run the serializer, it will create the proper plist for you, and then retrospectively you can install whatever version of Office apps on there. And they boot up, and they will go look in library preferences, they'll see the plist, and they are good to go. Okay. Man, somebody at the back needs to ask a question.
Lefty.
Yeah.
Okay. Currently, a good friend of mine is deploying the...
That means it's you. I know it's you. That's all right.
The license v2 plist along with their packages to avoid the whole
Yeah, it is you.
serializing issue. Are you guys planning on verifying said plist against hardware that it's deployed on?
Okay, yeah, I did make that threat on the channel. Yeah, we're really unhappy about people copying plists around, mainly because it actually opens up a piracy issue for us, because people could just take up that one 4K file and put it on their home computer, and hey, I have a free version of Office, and BitTorrents love that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we, with the serializer, especially the 2.0 version, we now hard code to that serial number of the boot drive. What happens is once you have the 2.0 serializer on there and that plist, then you can no longer copy that plist around and have free versions of Office activated. However, for the indefinite future, anybody who has essentially a V1 plist, which is the kind of generic key, we will not cut that off. We will continue to honor it. But I encourage you to use the VL2 serializer just so that we don't open up any other kind of piracy holes.
Okay, good.
Great questions.
Yeah.
Oh man, he's my favorite. Okay, I'm told that somebody's laptop got taken out earlier this week, so be a little careful. Screw it.
We've got one right up here.
Not bad, right? Okay, one more question, then
All right, thank you.
I should hand it back to Bill.
Bad throw, by the way.
What's that?
I said that was a pretty bad throw.
Okay. The answer is no.
So I was wondering, I noticed that the pace of updates for Office 2016 starts seeming more regular and more in line with the patch Tuesdays and all of that.
Yeah.
But one problem that we have is we have a lot of people working on the road all the time, And because the security updates are part of that one big package, sometimes it takes them a while to be able to install them just because they're always on LTE, and the packages are really huge for the updates. So is it because they contain Windows 10 and one day I'm going to boot my Mac and it's going to be running Windows? And is there any plan to actually try to make them smaller so they're going to be easier to download for people that don't have a lot of bandwidth?
Yeah, the answer is still no. No, it's a great point. There are a couple of things. So the first thing is, yeah, in the first 6 months of the life of Office 2016, the updates were large, about 3.5 gigs in size for the full suite of applications. In January, I think it was, January-February time, we came up with Delta updates, which is essentially a diff mechanism. And you're probably thinking to yourself, man, those guys are pretty dumb because they did the diff stuff back in 2011 because those updates were like 110 megs each. And now they go to 3.5 gigs. Well, one thing about 2016 is that our apps are sandboxed and they're code signed and code sealed. And sure, it's really easy to do a binary-based diff of an application. It is incredibly hard to retain a code signature so that it passes code sign and gatekeeper requirements, and by just injecting files in there. So it took us a good 6 months to perfect that to the point where we were not, causing issues by making the packages fragile by having smaller updates. So anyway, long story short, Delta updates today for all 5 applications accumulatively, we're about 700 megs in size. I talked about MauV4. MauV4, because it is silent, it will do an inspection of the local machine and it will figure out the best deployment mechanism to bring you up to date. MauV4, because it is silent, it doesn't present you with a bunch of options. It doesn't say, hey, would you like Word and Excel and PowerPoint? Out of the box, it just does everything for you. Now, there are kind of advanced options in there to say, hey, no, I actually don't want to take 2011 updates anymore. Even though it's installed on my machine, I just don't want them. However, if you're going to think about it, our updates are 3.5 gigs in size. Our installer is only 1.5 gigs in size. Yeah, how does that work? That kind of goes back to me needing more math up onto my whiteboard, right? So the installer uses this technique where it splits out fonts, frameworks, and proofing tools. And so when it installs, it puts like a stub of Word, a stub of Excel in there, and then it hydrates fonts, frameworks, and proofing tools at install time. So that's why we can ship a small installer. Okay, point I'm getting to now is that we can do the same with updates. Instead of having a Word update, an Excel update, an Outlook update, we can have an Office update. And that Office update can then be much smaller because the common fonts, frameworks, and proofing tools that are part of the Delta, we can just put in a single package that could be hydrated into the apps. And that will take us down to about 250 megs for a full update. So that's what we're doing.
Right. Thank you. Great answer.
Okay, you get to throw it back, and then I can say bad throw to you.
I'm not insured if I break someone's glasses or a laptop.
I don't have glasses, it's fine. That was a great throw.
All right, so to keep going, the command line installation for a volume license is a little bit different than an Office 365 installation. Your target must be that current volume. And for exactly what Paul was talking about, it's going to tie the license file to the serial number or to the serial number of the hard drive. However, as he just said, it's indefinitely postponed as to when that's going to be enforced. So to kind of tack onto that question, yes, you can still copy that, your friend can still copy that file, but no, he shouldn't or she shouldn't. Volume license customers are also going to find a second package in that ISO or that ISO file, that turduck,
No DMG.
called the VL serializer. If you deploy the full installer from that same download, you don't need this package. It's already inside the full volume license installer. You'll use the VL serializer just for 3 reasons. The VL serializer package installed before or after an Office 365 or a SKU List installer is a valid and supported volume license installation. This will also convert any Office 365 installation to a volume license installation. So in other words, if somebody has signed in with a personal account or maybe a corporate account and you're migrating to volume, the volume license serial number or license file will override the user license. And then the VL serializer package installed after you've copied that license plist file from another Mac with the volume license will correct that plist for the current software. So are there any questions about this, the VL serializer at this point? Right here.
Okay, I'm a little confused about whether or not it tests now currently. Apparently it doesn't, but at least on one of the blogs or some of the places, there was a suggestion that if we didn't do everything exactly right, it would fail at some random period. I think they suggested between 2 weeks and 2 months. Is there any way to force a test now to say, so I can know whether or not the serialization on a particular machine is good?
Yes. You can run a grep of the plist file. I wish I had a whiteboard here. Oh, you kind of do have a whiteboard here. Do I have a pen?
I don't think we've...
I have a pen. Grep-c quotes memcuz, capital M, lowercase e, lowercase m, capital C, lowercase u, lowercase z. Memcuz. If memcuz as a string is contained inside the licensing plist file, it was created by a V1 serializer. If you get 0 instances, then it's a V2.
I'm sorry, if it's inside of where?
It is in. I nearly wrote a backslash then. Funny. So library preferences. You saw it on my board. I'm really terrible at handwriting. com.microsoft.office.licensing v2.plist and grep c for memcuz. 0 equals VL1. 1 equals VL2. No, other way around. 1, 0. Off by 1. Huh.
My brain was melting because I knew you had said the opposite. Wait a minute, 0 is...
Yeah, that's fine.
0 is what you're looking for, right?
You're at the front, the guy at the back's going, what the hell is he writing up there?
I'm up front because I'm nearsighted.
Okay. And I can post this to the Slack channel if Ed hasn't done so already. Not Ed, Eric. Why do I keep calling you Ed? I don't know, Eric.
All right, sometimes you don't want to install all the applications that come with Office, and that's where a choices file comes into play. While Microsoft is perfectly willing to support installing the full suite and then deleting the items that you don't want by dragging them to the trash, as Mac admins, we know this really isn't a clean way to handle that. So instead, during your command line installation, add the Apply Choice Changes XML option to point to a file that says, this is what I want to install, this is not what I want to install. This is what the command looks like. If you're using something like Casper, it automatically takes care of that for you.
Is that a plug? You work for Jamf.
Not quite. I don't.
You're something like Casper.
Yeah.
An upgrade to Windows 10.
We can automatically take care of that for you if we repackage the file into a new package. So using a choices file is well documented in several places. I'm going to point you to these two. Clayton Burleson's Demystifying Office 2016 for Mac post. It's become the de facto everything you want to know page about Office 2016. And I'll also point you to the Monkey repository on GitHub where Greg Nagel has explained also how to use a choices file. And I'll give a small plug for a little AppleScript that I wrote a couple of months ago. Patrick Ferguson has already kind of torn it apart, but at some point he'll help me get it working just right. It does work now for Office 2016, but I wrote this primarily for Office 2016. It will let you point to your volume license. It will let you choose what installer choices you do and don't want to install, and then it will create a package for you. It'll rewrap it for you so that if you're looking for something a little less technical, a little more automated, this might help you too.
$9.99 on the App Store, right? Yeah.
It's open source. It's to the world.
Sucker.
All right. Now, once we've deployed Office, we need to keep it up to date. All right. The most straightforward way is to use Microsoft AutoUpdate. Just recently, the automatic option, though, lost its ability to specify how frequently your Mac can check for updates. We no longer have the daily, weekly, monthly checks. Now it checks every 12 hours by default.
Every
correct?
12 hours, yeah. We kind of got rid of those other options. Mao came around in like the 2004 era when we were still using, dial-up 19.2K modems. And I give props to anybody who can make the sounds of a modem. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's right.
It's my ringtone.
Okay, so nice. Man, you guys are awesome. Anyway, so we got rid of like the daily, weekly. The files that we download, Bill's actually going to talk about them, but they're pretty small, CAT and XML files. They're usually about less than 30K in size, and so there's no really big hit in just polling them every 12 hours. So that's what automatic means now, every 12 hours.
All right, cool. So if your users are administrators on the Macs, AutoUpdate probably makes sense for them. They can keep themselves up to date, but it also means that you're going to probably have multiple versions of Office in your environment. When we get to managing preferences later, we'll talk about what Paul's mentioned here. We'll see how you can control these versions. So by the way, AutoUpdate is optimized to determine the smallest updates necessary. It'll patch whatever current version is and download the smallest files available. If your application is just a minor version behind, it's going to download the Delta updates. And those include only the changes from the most recent version to the new version. However, if AutoUpdate applications or finds current applications are way out of date, it's going to re-download the entire installer and update it that way.
I think a good example is with the 23 release, 15.23, we had a couple of hot fixes that we pushed out. There's a 23.1 for a Japanese macro issue, a 23.2 for a most recently used network traffic issue, and the Delta update for Word was 70 megs. And although that's still larger than I'd like, a 70 meg update for us is pretty damn good, compared to what we would have done in the past, which was download a gig update.
All right, and then Alistair Banks worked with Paul, shout out to Alistair if he's in here, on the Microsoft Slack channel, and he put together auto package recipes and for Office 2016. Between the two of them, between Alistair and Paul, they standardized the recipes for identifying, downloading, and installing updates. So a lot of work went into that. If AutoUpdate isn't an environment for your or isn't an option for your environment, and you're running a software management system, then these are ready to deliver straight from AutoPackage or AutoPackager. I believe these recipes might actually be up in the main branch of AutoPackage. I haven't checked lately. If you need to download and then deploy the updates, you can simply search the internet for Office 2016 for Mac updates and then add the version number to the end that you're looking for. You're not going to find a single installer, a single updater for everything though. Some of you might recall from my presentation last year that Office is now sandboxed and each application is now a fully self-contained app bundle. If you download each update, you're downloading nearly full installers. Word alone is a gig as an update, as a major update. Furthermore, you can deploy the SKU List installers. Remember, that's the same one as the one you would download from Office 365 too. Quite often, if you want to update the entire suite of applications, deploying the latest full installer as if it were an update. So, installer as if it were an update might be smaller and faster than the sum of multiple individual applications. So for example, use the individual installers to update OneNote and Outlook. Those are the two smallest packages you'll see, and they're about 1.15 gig. But if you add a third package to that, use instead the full Office installer as the update, because it's going to be 1.5 gig, which is smaller than any 3 of these individual updates combined. And then depending on your location in the world, you're going to receive your updates from one of 3 content delivery systems that they have throughout the world. These full installers include the licensing components as well as the Microsoft AutoUpdate. So, Paul, can you tell us what a CDN is and what these numbers mean?
Yeah, so the 3 CDN providers we use, one is Akamai, another is Azure, and the other is China Cache. And even though the underlying URLs, it just says like https officecdn.microsoft.com, there is basically an origin and a balancer that will look at the request, where you're coming from, and take you to one of those individual providers. Sometimes you hit Akamai, sometimes you hit Azure. It's kind of pretty random, to be honest with you. The cool thing about it, though, is that wherever you are, you're probably going to hit a pretty local server. So it's a local node in the content delivery system, and you will be able to get those updates downloaded really rapidly. We used to put all of our updates on Microsoft.com, specifically in the download center, and that was essentially a Redmond-based service, and it was very reliable, but all the traffic had to go back to North America. And so we made that switch for updates in, I think it was March. And so after March, you should see, even though the packages are still kind of fairly large, you should see much more rapid downloads.
And if I recall correctly, the URL that's right there at the top, plus any one of these numbers, is static, correct? And you'll always get the latest version?
Yep. Every month I update these and I point them to the very latest bits.
All right, so if you've got any kind of automated software that you'd prefer to roll your own and download, you've got something static here you can always point to and then get the latest version that's available from whichever server in whatever country you would prefer. All right, and then soon after joining Slack, Paul put together this page. If you've ever wondered if it's legit or where it came from, thank him. He refreshes this page, yes.
I think they're applauding me for my great HTML and JavaScript skills.
You hand-coded that in Word.
Yeah, the graphics on this thing are amazing. I use Metal.
And Paul refreshes this page with every Office 2016 update. And he also includes, I don't show it quite, but where it says release history, he's got links to all the KB articles as well. Plus, he's got links to all of the updates as well as the full installers. So just remember, macadmins.software. .software is a top-level domain. All right. Now, after we've deployed and updated Office, we need to manage some files and settings. So depending on how our time goes, I might kind of skip through some of these because Paul's got some really cool things to show us here. And unfortunately, we still can't manage most user-level settings in each application now that Microsoft has moved to that SQLite database. But many of the newer features that were built within the past year do useplists, and Paul and the other developers have made sure that those are manageable. So with regard to the Microsoft Registration DB file, anything you can share?
Yeah, this sounds like it was rehearsed. Anything you can share?
I was up at 5 o'clock thinking how I was going to phrase this.
So we have 4,735 different preferences that we read on app launch. The reason why we put our preferences into the SQLite database is that we just can't get the plist to scale that high. and still get reasonable performance out of app launch. The problem, though, of course, is that it breaks a lot of management software. So we've kind of made a commitment to ourselves that new options, especially those options that you would want to deploy as IT administrators, they will live in plist, okay? And we won't put them in the SQLite database. Furthermore, we are going to take some of the more important options that are currently in the SQLite database and move them out to plist. And so that means you will be able to use OS 10 configuration profiles, sorry, Mac OS configuration profiles, I guess, and any third-party management tools that uses the CF preferences API to be able to set those preferences and kind of deploy them. That still kind of felt a little icky by just kind of giving you access to 100 or so different plists. So what we will be doing as well is we will give you a tool which will allow you to get and set preferences inside the SQLite registry. So for those options that are still inside that SQLite database, we'll give you a tool to be able to manage that.
Do I see a question back there?
It's called regedit.
I guess not. Okay.
My wife down the front is not laughing. She's like, what's so funny about that?
All right, so templates, add-ins, and more. This feature was actually designed for the release of Office 2016 back a year ago in July. It wasn't well documented, and it was actually broken during the initial delivery. Weve fixed that for us within a month or two. So if you deploy files to the top-level library folder following this path, they will be available to all users on a Mac. You can't redirect this to another location. It has to be on each machine, and it has to be in the top-level library folder. But it's ideal for more than a dozen different types of files that you might want to give your users, such as templates for company letterheads, or add-ins for automation, or startup items, or themes, and other things like that. You don't need to modify user preferences in order to be able to put these in there. Put them in, and then they show up. Phil.
I just want to give him the opportunity to throw that again.
Ooh, good catch.
All right, so question, are these generated at install, launch, or are these user generated when you want to put stuff there, these folders?
You have to put them there yourself.
It's for administrators, so
We should
users.
take a screenshot of this folder structure so that we can mimic it.
No, it's documented. macadmins.software/docs in that PDF file up there.
And you've got a phone.
Weve actually wrote up a full support doc on how that works.
All right. So
Question at the back, hopefully.
All right. So for several years, I've maintained an AppleScript to help administrators connect their users to their company Exchange servers. Version 5 supports Outlook 2016, and it's actually much easier to use and deploy. Thank you
This
for that
truly is awesome,
spontaneous,
Bill.
Unrehearsed applause.
No, your script here, I speak to so many customers, and they always refer to this script. So
that's
thank you
cool.
for doing that.
Very cool. All right, so like the older versions, administrators still need to edit some properties in the script to point to the correct servers, but new for this version, there's a second script that takes everything and it generates an Apple installer package for you so that it's much easier and faster to deploy. Look for the wiki. This is the page right here, and you should find everything you know. Shout out to Eric Holton for helping me solve the setup issue on that. Thank you very much. All right, not every customer uses Office 360. I'm sorry, I should have had you cover your ears for that first, Paul. Not every customer uses Office 365, which means their users need to save to the local network shares instead of online. So, Office apps default to saving to online, OneDrive accounts, or SharePoint, but those services don't exist in environments. Then, if they don't exist in those environments, then their users need to click on my Mac and then display a second dialog for saving locally. Administrators can manage that setting and instead default to saving to local drives first. We can use the command line to write to a plist to the group containers folder in each user home folder. Note that this plist isn't in a manageable location, so you can't use configuration profiles to automatically distribute those settings to your users. Currently, you either need to distribute the plist to every user folder, or you need to write a script that takes care of this for you. And then keep in mind that if the user saves locally once without changing this, that it still defaults back to the local drive instead of the cloud drive. So, side note.
Yeah, this is one of the preferences that we will be moving to a proper preferences domain, so you can use CF preferences tools and the standard defaults tool to manage that guy, rather than writing it as a sparse plist file.
Right. So pretty much what he's saying is, even though it's not manageable now, it will be manageable later, along with a lot of other things office-wide.
Okay.
Can I go back to the whiteboard there, or would you rather put me off till later?
I will put you off till later.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got 19 minutes, so, and like, I think 98 more slides to go. Okay. All right.
They're all pictures of my goats. So they're important.
There may be a need to manage updates other than using Microsoft AutoUpdate. We've been able to manage checking for updates since Office 2011, and we can still use the same method for Office 2016. You can either use the defaults command to write the how to check and the last update keys to each user's com.microsoft.autoupdate to plist, or you could actually write this to the top level library preferences folder, and that will manage it for everybody. And we can also create and upload this plist to an MDM to make a custom configuration profile to do the exact same thing. This doesn't dim and disable these settings, but it won't stop somebody from manually checking for these updates, but it will always override the automatic update. So earlier we discussed the Office Insider program, and we saw that anyone could enable access to either Office Insider Slow or Insider Fast. Remember, Insider Fast is not for production, and you may decide that neither is Insider Slow. So in other words, you need to allow users the ability to update their software, but not allow them access to the Insider channels. All right, we have a couple of tools to do that, thanks to Paul. We can use the defaults command to set the disable insider checkbox option, and we can write this again to each user's home folder or to the top level library folder, and this will apply to all users. This dims and disables the option for anyone to select it. Yes, I agree with that. There is a recent feature that allows users to continue running AutoUpdate, but it allows an administrator to determine which updates to install. So it's ideal for organizations that need to vet a specific version of Office before allowing it to be deployed, but it still allows you to take advantage of AutoUpdate, both inside and outside the network. All right, so here's how it works. For the client, use defaults or to set the channel name to custom. So our options are either Insider Slow, Insider Fast. In this case, we would set to custom. Then add a key called manifest server with the value that points to your web server, HTTP or HTTPS, doesn't make a difference. And if you can make that available on the internet too, you can manage your folks outside. Likewise, you can take that same defaults command, make a plist, make a configuration profile, and push that out to manage it just as well. It will override whatever your users have selected. And then all of these settings redirect your users to the HTTP or HTTPS server of your choice, where it's going to check for updates. Next, on that server, you need to get 2 files from Microsoft that control the versions when they run AutoUpdate. If you want to keep your users at a very specific version for an app, download the XML and the cat files that you see listed here. So start off with that URL and then append whatever files you need to download, copy those to your web server, and that's it. When your Macs go to check for updates on your web server, they'll see these files. They're not looking at Microsoft, and you can hold your users at a specific version until you remove the files. And AutoUpdate will default, it does not default back to the CDN, correct? It stays there.
Correct.
Even if
So
you
if
don't
you
have
set
files.
the custom channel manifest server key, MAU will be fixated on your HTTP or HTTPS server for its update. So if that server is down for some reason, MAU will just say can't contact server. So it won't fall back to any Microsoft server. So that's your mechanism of setting a kind of a maximum allowable update for your users. One of the problems, kind of a processy problem, but these files get overwritten every month with our releases. So what I'll be doing from this moment on is every time we release, I'll be taking all of these files, putting them in a zip file, and making them available on macadmins.software so that you can just download this collateral at any point in time, deploy on your own HTTP server, and you can control the updates.
Sweet. And Paul's got a demo for us. I have not even seen this.
I haven't seen it.
And chicken's right there.
Oh, what do we have to do with the chicken?
Do
I have to hold it?
to the demo gods.
Oh, yeah? Have to kiss the chicken?
Don't touch it.
Yeah.
Don't you- Yeah. Okay, so we come out of Keynote here.
Sorry about that.
Microsoft has this great presentation tool, Bill. I should
Yes.
I should talk about.
Persuasion, isn't it?
So
The only reason I used Keynote to do this last year was because it had the magic move feature, and PowerPoint's actually gotten the morph feature, which is the equivalent now. So I might go look at that again.
so here is an awesome tool for creating presentations, and in fact I am running the Insider Fast build that will be shipping later on today.
Sorry, was that the Insider Crash build?
That is, no, the fast build. And the fast build, if I pull this over, you may kind of notice something in here. Today's build will be the first 64-bit build of Microsoft Office that we have ever released. This will go to Insider Fast. It's kind of a big deal for us, moving to 64-bit. It goes to Insider Fast today, and it will go to Insider Slow next Monday. We are going to hold then for a month just to see what the feedback is and making sure that everybody is having a good time with 64-bit and doesn't cause any problems. And then the plan is we will upgrade our production channel to 64-bit next month. So that will be the mid-August release. There will be Delta updates. So you will Delta update from 32 to 64-bit. The installers will remain at 32-bit until the production channel changes. So as I said, mid-August is the current target, but again, depending on if everybody's happy, then we'll convert it. Just a couple of quick things. I might be able to answer these questions. 32 to 64-bit upgrade should be seamless for the most part. You should really not notice it at all. Of course, there are benefits. Launch time is better. Support for larger documents, especially in kind of Excel and Word, that gets greatly increed. It's a bigger deal in the Windows world, 32 and 64-bit Office, because there's like a lot more of kind of an ecosystem and compiled add-ins. There's still an issue with compiled add-ins with 64-bit here, so anything which is compiled like the EndNote add-in, we've been working with Thomson Reuters to get them ready to ship a 64-bit version of the EndNote plugin. And in fact, they can build fat, so they can have like 32 and 64 all in the same binary. So I think that's what Thomson Reuters is doing. For us, this is cold turkey. Once we move a channel to 64-bit, there is no going back at that point, and we will not have a 32 or a 64-bit option. We will just move to 64-bit for that channel. If you use macros, if you have VBA, none of that changes. You don't have to worry about 64-bit changes there. It's only if you used compiled add-ins would you need to go talk back to your vendor where you got that from and make sure that they have a 64-bit compatible version that you can use. Yes? Oh, that was a really bad throw. I'm getting worse.
Do you know if Thomson Reuters is going to be ready when you are?
Yes, they are.
We're sure.
Yep, for sure.
Okay.
Whoa! Man. That was pretty bad.
Missed him by that much.
You pay him to do that, Bill?
I wish I had a picture of that. That would have been great.
Heads up! I should have said heads up before I threw it.
You're starting to move files locally for saving mail. We have a lot of problems with people who save their mail locally, get a corrupted profile, trying to move those saved local emails and then import them back in. Is there a new way of doing it in 2016?
This is where I wish Jeff Calvis was here.
Let's take that one offline because that's really an Outlook question. I can help you with that, and I can say right now no, but I can point you in the right direction as who we need to talk to.
Thank you.
Okay. So another thing I wanted to show you, we were talking about preferences here. Where's my screen? I guess I'm down here, right? So we have this kind of sign-in thing, right? Where we can sign in and have all the wonders of OneDrive. We've had some feedback which says that, some people have embraced OneDrive. And then OneDrive for Business, right? And Jonathan's at the back there, and Jonathan's from the OneDrive team. And they say, well, this is kind of great, and we get it, Microsoft. You want us to buy subscriptions, and you want us to move our files to the cloud. But it kind of sucks that people can sign in with their Microsoft account here and get access to their personal files, and we don't want that. This is a business, and we want people to only access OneDrive for Business. And then we get some other folks that say, we're just not ready to move our files to the cloud, and we really just don't want our users signing in here. So, taking that feedback, and again, this is built into the Insiders build that releases today. You can run defaults write com.microsoft PowerPoint sign in options. Oh, can I make it bigger? Yeah.
Command plus.
Command plus. How's that? Yeah?
You're getting there.
There we go. Sign in options, integer 2. Integer 2 means do not allow people to sign in with Microsoft accounts. Only allow them to sign in using their org ID or their business accounts. So if I hit that, and I go back and I quit PowerPoint, did it quit? Oh. Quit. And start that guy again. And go to sign in. Go type in Mr. Exchange at gmail.com, which is my personal MSA. Rub the chicken. Hit next. Please sign in with the account provided by your work, school, or university. So you can now limit MSA sign-ins. And the secret, if you set this integer to 4, then you disallow all sign-ins altogether, and it will not allow any user to sign in. So there we go.
I like.
Kind of a new option there.
I like. And Mr. Exchange, by the way, is his Twitter handle too. One thing he didn't tell you was you spent, what, 19 years on Exchange?
Well, 19 years at Microsoft, 14 years on Exchange.
All right. All right, cool. So we've got 6 minutes left, and there's a ton of stuff that I want to talk about. So I'm going to kind of be picking and choosing here. I think telemetry is important for us to understand. And so I'm going to actually have Paul kind of take this over. I've got some screenshots to show you just quickly. Telemetry includes Microsoft error reporting, and it also includes these pieces of information that your users might actually send back to Microsoft. There's this page I'm going to have Paul kind of explain to us when he sees crash reports on his side.
Yeah, so there are two fundamental types of telemetry for us. There is crash telemetry, which goes up through the Watson pipeline. So if the process unexpectedly terminates, you get what you saw just a couple of screens ago there, where it says, oh, sorry for the inconvenience. That sends us a call stack. The call stack is really useful for us to trace to the line of code which is causing the issue. When I arrive at work in the morning, I get out of the elevators, the first thing I see is this big screen, and this big screen has a big version of this, and it tells me exactly what the worldwide user base is seeing in terms of crashes. And it breaks down each of the applications, it tells me the crash hit ratios, and it also does autocorrelation back to a bug in our system. So when we release an update, the next day when I walk in, I can see whether an update is actually causing a kind of a new issue. The owner of the issue will be one of our sub-teams, and then we can kind of track the status. It is really important for us to receive those crash reports in so we can figure out if people are having a bad experience, and we can also see from that if there's any particular pattern. We also have a region breakdown. I remember walking in probably 2 months ago, and there were so many crash reports from China on there. We didn't understand it. We thought there was something going on with the CDN over there, that we had a corrupt download, a corrupt file on the CDN. Turns out that there was a particular font that is very popular in China that was causing Word to crash. So this is very cool for us. I know people are kind of paranoid about telemetry and what is Microsoft doing, phoning home, and how are they using my data. And of course, I can give you, the legal Microsoft policy. This is what we do with your data. This is what we collect. But from an engineering standpoint, this is incredibly useful for us to give you a better quality product.
So there are preferences. If you still need to disable telemetry, there are preferences to do that for each application. The only thing that's really changing up here is just the domain that you see right at the end of defaults. So we've got 3 minutes, and I want to get through. There are servers. Paul has put together, let's go back here. There are servers, a list of servers that Paul has put together that Office uses to talk. Telemetry servers, Nexus, many people have seen that. There's a list, I've got that link right here. All right, let's talk quickly about the future. Come back here. All right, so command line, auto update.
Let's go back to update cache, because I had a joke for that.
There we go, sorry.
Okay, update cache.
Got 2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes.
Seconds.
This is a new feature with Inside Mau that we're developing. Should be about a couple of weeks away. It allows you to host your own server containing packages. So if you don't want Mau going to our CDN, blocking your internet pipe, and getting packages from the CDN, then you can point this update cache at a local HTTP or HTTPS URL, and we will use a corporate server. We codename this Whiskey because it's like rum, but a little bit more palatable.
All right. We'll skip my app store, done 64 bits.
I told you I had a joke.
And let's go to this one. And then we'll call it done. When's the next version of Office?
Next version of Office. I want to go back to Mau. Okay, so as part, 30 seconds. So I talked about Mau version 4 and talked about how it will auto-detect, auto-download updates. One of the things is that if you're using Casper or another management tool, you don't those tools don't have all of the kind of the smarts of MAU to know when to take a delta update or when to take any, the full update. So what we are doing is, as part of MAU v4, we will be allowing command line updates. So you can invoke MAU from the command line, and you can say, bring yourself up to date or bring yourself to this version, and MAU will figure out by itself what is the best path to take, so that you don't have to push updates. You just tell MAU, and it'll do the rest. Next version of Office is next month. We're updating monthly.
At this point,
seriously, there is as we bring out monthly updates. Up to now, there hasn't been many differences, many feature changes between the subscription versus volume versus retail version. You'll see that drastically change over the next month. Over the next year, where many more features we will be introducing in updates will only be applicable to people who are subscribers. And so, yeah, those features at some point, we will package them all up and probably give you another Office update for VL and retail.
Very cool. Orchestra's playing us off, so thank you very much.